because our cows are no longer grass-fed, they're devoid of omega-3s. And I don't know how many of you have gotten into the whole omega-6, omega-3 thing, but it's a serious, serious issue. I mean, I'm 55 years old. I'm older than, I think, everybody in this room. But I will tell you that, you know, the milk when I was a kid was actually healthy. But it isn't today, conventional milk. And we know that organic milk is much, much higher in omega-3s. That means we have a much better omega-6, omega-3 ratio. And in a moment I want to tell you that we're even pushing the limit of that. So it's absolutely critical, as I think you know, and I think this is why you're here, that we be overtly not just defensive about what we're feeding ourselves, but offensive about changing the system. And we have the power to do that. And if there's one single message I hope that you'll get from today, it's that we control the food system. And you know, just a quick piece of background. I don't want to go on and on because I'd rather do the Q&A with Christine. But I just understand. When I was in college studying ecology and climate change, and you know, I discovered back then that the average, this is in the 1970s, that the average child was walking around with about 150 toxic chemicals in her tissue or his tissue at the time of birth. This is 1972. And you know, that isn't all because of pesticides and chemical fertilizers. A lot of it is flame retardants and, you know, paint thinners and all the other things that we've just kind of unconsciously allowed to become part of the way we live on Earth. And so when I graduated college, I didn't want to go to work in business or commerce because I saw that as the source of all that bad stuff. So I went to work at an ecological research center on Cape Cod called New Alchemy Institute. Some of you may know, but most of you look too young to have known about this. But just to give you a sense of what we did, we had a building that was about the size of this room where the sun's rays would come in from the south-facing glass or plastic and would strike these ponds of water that are about 5 feet tall and 5 feet diameter. And that was our solar furnace. That's what actually heated the building. So the pond would absorb the sun's rays and then re-radiate and keep the building heated, even in the winter, even at night. So we grew bananas and figs and papayas and had birds and bees and butterflies in this bioshelter on Cape Cod with 3 feet of snow outside, using no fossil fuels to burn to keep it warm, because the water acted as thermal mass, as it does on the Earth. And since we had water, we grew fish, and we grew 100 pounds of herbivorous plant-eating fish called tilapia, which are now pretty common, but back then it was a little bizarre. I always tend to do bizarre things. People, when we started the company, didn't even know what yogurt was, let alone what organic was. And believe me, talking about tilapia in 1977 was kind of like putting people to sleep. It's funny for me to see it on menus everywhere now. But what you may not know about tilapia is it's a very ecologically profound fish. It's actually been known to leap up on the banks of the Amazon and chew on grasses and go back in the water. So for aquaculture, it's very good. It means you need less pumps and you know, aquaculture. So we grew 100 pounds of fish per tank. And then since we had fish, the fish wastes would trickle to the bottom of the ponds, and we'd pump those out and we'd irrigate and fertilize the gardens all around the ponds with nutrient-rich, nitrogen-rich fertilizer. And then because the fish were plant-eating fish, we would take the weeds and the excess leafy matter from the gardens and feed that to the fish. And so what I'm describing is what goes on in nature all the time, every day. And unfortunately, our food system has gotten a whole long way from nature, because in the interest of making it cheaper, in the interest and the drive to be efficient, we've not only added a lot of synthetic junk, you know, gelatins and modified food starches, but in our whole agriculture system, all the way from the ground that is tilled to provide the grain to the cows, to how the cows are grown, we have, you know, added shortcuts, unconsciously thinking, well, this will make it more financially viable. But what ends up happening is it really becomes toxic. And what Food Inc. exposes is that our food system is actually killing us. And one little statistic from the film is that 1 out of 3 children born after the year 2000 will become a type 2 diabetic. You know, I'm talking about toxicity, but this is obviously a direct result of excessive amounts of carbs and sugars. And by the way, when you look at minority populations, it's 1 in 2. That's a terrifying statistic. in my childhood, only adults became type 2 diabetics. And now we have 7-year-olds becoming type 2 diabetics. It was unheard of. And this is a result of our food.